Hi everyone, welcome to Big Smoke Barbecue. My name is Ashley and today I'm going to show you how to make our mac and cheese that we sell at our catering pop-ups. So if ever you've been to one of our pop-ups, you've probably had our mac and cheese, and I would say it's the most popular item on our menu. Whether that says good things about our barbecue, I don't know. Or whether it's just that the mac and cheese is really good, I'll let you decide after making it in this video. But today, the reason I'm doing it is because I get a lot of requests from people for the recipe, and it's not that I've ever tried to hide it. You know, I'm not going to be a millionaire because I make decent mac and cheese, am I? Now, I'm going to get into this. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the ingredients first, so that if you're missing anything, you can go out and get it first, rather than starting to make the mac and cheese and then realizing that we have something that you don't, and you'll have to pop out and go and get it. So without any further ado, let's get into the cook. So everything in front of you now is what you're going to need to make this mac and cheese. Now, we're going to make a roux to start with, so of course we're using the salted butter, the milk, and our plain flour. Now you could get Lurpak if you want. If you've got money to burn, then by all means go and spend money on that, but we don't use that. We use cheaper alternative to Lurpak, and it doesn't taste any different, especially when it's being put in a mac and cheese sauce. From there, we've got obviously our macaroni. Now, pick that up from Morrison's or other supermarkets. The only place you can't get that from is Aldi. For the cheeses, we've got red Leicester, mild cheddar, and mozzarella. Now, you'll be pleased to know that we haven't got a 17 cheese blend or anything like that crazy going on. It is literally just those three. So that's all we're going to need. We're going to need the French's yellow mustard and Valentina's hot sauce. If you haven't got Valentina's hot sauce, which is probably quite likely, don't panic. You can use the Cholula hot sauce if you want to. It's very, very similar. If you haven't got either of those and you've got some other hot sauce, then by all means use that. But just be aware that we use Valentina's. Those are our ingredients. Oh, of course, salt and pepper as well, you know, just to taste. And then also afterwards, we're going to top it with some pork scratchings and coriander. You don't have to add those things at the end. They're optional, but we started to do it recently, and I think it adds a really good depth of flavour, and it just makes the presentation a lot better. So we'll start with the roux. What I've got here is just a serving of mac and cheese. This is a large portion of it, what we would sell at our pop-ups. Measure out your mac and cheese, your macaroni first, and then go from there. What we want to do is get a pan with some water in, get that pretty much up to a boil. Then you're going to want to put your macaroni in, stir it around so it doesn't stick. You don't have to put oil in, I don't know why people do that. You can just stir it, it's fine. Get some table salt or any other salt and make that pretty salty. One thing you don't want to do is just put pasta in there. Put some salt in there. If you're a bit worried about that amount of salt, you're not going to taste all that salt after, because we are going to drain it. We're going to cook that for 10 minutes or so. Now, I apologise in advance. I'm not really good at measuring stuff out. I don't really measure. I just kind of go by eyeball, I guess. So we're going to go for what that's probably like 2 tablespoons-ish. And then another one of these. So 4 tablespoons, roughly. Then we're going to add our flour in and mix that together. So this butter is now melted. What we're going to do is take it off the heat and put around the same of plain flour. So 4 tablespoons of plain white flour. We're going to mix that in now. We want it to be quite thick, so we're just going to judge this because I don't usually measure stuff out. If anything, that might be a little bit too thin, but actually that's fine. That's the sort of thing we're looking for, something like that. What we're going to do now is cook this off. So it's going to go back on the heat. We're going to keep stirring this around, incorporating all the loose bits of flour that there might be still around. Keep stirring it, whisking it, because we don't want it to stick or burn. I'm going to turn the heat up ever so slightly. So we've got a like a low-medium heat now. This is something you don't want to cook on high because it will burn very easily. Butter is very easy to burn, especially when it's mixed with this flour, because it becomes quite grainy and it will stick to the pan very easily. Now we've mixed that through, what we're going to do is we're going to try and put, I would say that's probably 3-ish, maybe 4 tablespoons in. We're going to add milk very slowly to this as it goes, because what happens is if you add too much milk at once, the flour and the milk will split. So I don't know how much milk you're going to use here. It's going to be quite a bit, but you're just going to have to periodically add it bit by bit. Keep stirring it in. You don't want it to be too wet as such. What you want to do is keep stirring it in. Obviously I'm taking it off the heat now, but that's not such a problem with this because we don't want it to be too hot. We just want it to keep getting incorporated in. What eventually will happen is this roux will become really nice, soft, smooth sauce rather than flour and milk that have lots of lumps and bits in there, because that's definitely not what you want. Keep doing this over and over again. This is the only real skill, I would say, or thing that takes the time, is making that roux. Once you've done that, it's very easy from there. Something that's not going to take very long. As you can see now, we're starting to get a bit more of a sauce. That heat will also thicken it up nicely, but if we'd have added loads of milk, or as much milk as I've added now, if we'd added all that at the beginning, it would have split and you'd have to start again, really. It would not work out very well. We're going to keep adding that same sort of amount of milk each time. So this isn't far off now. What we're going to do is add our next ingredient, which is our Valentina's hot sauce. So if you look right now, what you've got is basically a white sauce, just a roux. We're going to turn that heat down a little bit. We're going to add in probably, a tablespoon. Might be a bit too much, maybe, but about a tablespoon of this is what we need. We're also going to add in our mustard, which is going to be around the same, maybe slightly less. Yeah, about a teaspoon. So we're going to add in about a teaspoon of mustard. Just get that off the spoon. And then we're going to mix this together. The Valentina's hot sauce brings out flavours of the mac and cheese itself. Now we are adding our cheese to this sauce. What we're going to do is go in with our red Leicester first. We're going to do a generous handful of red Leicester, and then another generous handful of mild. We're going to turn the heat up to a medium high just to get this red Leicester melted, because one of the only things with red Leicester is it takes longer to melt than mild or mozzarella cheese does. That red Leicester is melted, but I've tasted it and it needs more red Leicester. Now I'm doing this as a real stripped back version because with our catering, I know the amounts that I need off to a T, but obviously I'm not making a massive catering batch of mac and cheese today, just for one portion to show you how to make it. And also, it's not very good for you at home because you're not going to do that either. You're just going to make it for yourself at home. So I added in another handful of red Leicester. So we've got a 2-to-1 ratio now of red Leicester, which to me looks a lot better. Now I'm going to turn the heat down because that red Leicester has really started to melt. And now, as you can see, it's turned into quite a thick sauce. So what we're going to do is add another bit of milk and stir this round. We're not using a whisk now. We don't really need to. We just need to use a spoon. I'm using a slotted spoon for this. Get that all mixed together. As this stays hot, what will happen is it will thicken up naturally anyway. So if you do add a bit too much milk, don't panic. You can either add a bit more cheese if you want, or you can just wait for it to thicken up slightly. And if it's too thick, you can do what we just did there and add a little bit more milk. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drain this macaroni, put it in there, and that's the next step. It's also worth noting, that I'm adding a tiny bit of macaroni water to this here, just to add a bit more flavour. Now this macaroni is going in. We're going to stir this round. What we're going to do now is turn the heat off. And we're going to add in our mozzarella now. About half as much as the mild cheddar, so half a handful is probably all we're going to need for this, but we're going to judge it accordingly in a second. We're going to leave that for a minute, just stirring it a little bit, not too much. You don't want to break down the pasta too much, so we're going to just leave that to thicken ever so slightly, and maybe add a little bit more mild cheddar. That should be plenty. We're going to stir that around, wait for it to thicken, and then we're going to serve it up. In the meantime, we are going to open our pork scratchings. Now, I don't normally use these, I just grabbed them from the shop today. I just grab whichever ones. So I'm going to bash these up into small clumps, and then I'm going to show you the result afterwards. I've smashed these to bits, and now we're going to sprinkle them on top of our mac and cheese at the end. Also get some coriander ready, cut that up into small pieces, and then serve it on top of the mac and cheese. Now coming back to our mac and cheese here, it's just been left to sort of warm through even more and get thicker. That is exactly what we want. That lovely, thick mac and cheese, stringy mac and cheese, but not gloopy and not too thin. Just as a side note, as I said earlier, if you've been to our pop-ups before and you've had our mac and cheese, if it wasn't for the last 2 pop-ups you've been to, if you've been to any previous before that, it will be just this. You won't have had the pork scratchings and the coriander on top. It will just be this. This is our mac and cheese recipe right here. You don't have to do this next step. You can just serve it as it is, but we're going to serve it up now. We're going to go in with our macaroni. I'm using a slotted spoon because I don't want so much sauce in there. There's one portion. There's probably enough for 2 there in here. So there we have it in all its glory. Now, like I said, you don't have to put the pork scratchings on. You can literally just serve it as it is. But I'm going to give it a taste now, let you know what I think. One thing I do think is I have maybe not crushed up the pork scratchings enough compared to what we normally do at our pop-up. But here we go. Yeah, the pork scratchings do it. I mean, that saltiness from the pork scratchings is great. I didn't add any more salt in, by the way. I just left it as it was because of the salt from that macaroni and also the salted butter. Yeah, that mac and cheese is so good. People that come to our pop-ups say how amazing the mac and cheese is, and people say it's the best they've ever had. I'll let you be the judge of that. You might disagree, you might think it is, you might prefer it without the pork scratchings and the coriander on top. I think the pork scratchings are a nice touch. Coriander just adds that little bit of colour to it, you know, a little bit of flavour on the front end. That tastes like my mac and cheese that I serve at my pop-ups. This is very yellow, it's very rich in colour, rich in flavour, and something that I think you're going to love. I'm going out later for a meal, so I need to stop eating that. If you want to make this yourself, please do. Please tag me on Instagram if you do, and on Facebook, Big Smoke BBQ UK, or just Big Smoke Barbecue on Facebook. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought. If you like the video, please do like, comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.